either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
Welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Weird. I'm Nico.
And I'm Chris.
And today we have a public safety warning for you.
Remember, you must drink water. If you don't drink water, you'll become dehydrated.
And what happens when you become dehydrated?
You pass out like this.
So, no one has any clue what we're talking about.
Probably not.
Get ready for a whole episode of mispronunciations.
Apologize now.
We are covering a film called Mardko Dard Nahin Hota, or The Man Who Feels No Pain.
Yes.
We are taking you to the largest movie producer in the world, Bollywood.
Yes. We're starting with this one for kind of two reasons. First off, we found it surprisingly difficult to get a hold of a Bollywood movie.
Mm-hmm. Or not that, a movie that we actually wanted to, or we had originally thought of reviewing.
Yeah, because I had a list of movies that I had watched either at a friend's home or while eating out at restaurants and had seen them on the TV. But surprisingly, they're harder to come by than I thought they would be.
Mm-hmm.
So my list of like 5 to 10 movies that I had, I couldn't find without having to either illegally get them or like wait for Amazon to ship them to me.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, now that I know that, not a problem, but I was not prepared.
Or the ones that we were looking at were like $30 to $40 for the DVD.
Yeah, I really want to see the one with the guy and the guns and the cars and the flipping.
All of them.
They look so cool. But we got lucky, and this movie is 2018 Bollywood movie. It's from, I guess they do a bunch of different dialects and languages, so this one happens to be a Hindi language film.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes a difference to anyone out there. It didn't for me. Subtitles.
Yeah, and
But,
I'll get into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because I did a bit of research on the history of Bollywood, very briefly, because, oh boy, is this... We didn't realize the rabbit hole we were getting into, because this is...
Yeah, this might be a new series where we just have Bollywood so that we can cover this over the next... a couple of episodes throughout the years, because I clicked on that link. It was too long.
Yes.
But this movie just so happens to be on Netflix, or at least it is right now, which made it very convenient. And it also meant that the subtitles were at least on there in the correct order.
Yes.
Which I have learned with my brand new DVD player that I acquired for Christmas, that subtitles just aren't a thing for some places. And
oh, yeah.
Boy, is it making it hard for me.
Especially, like, international ones, because I've looked into it, and mainly what I've been looking at is, like, England's releases of films. They get, like, special cool editions that we can't get here.
English people, subtitle your movies. But anyway, so this one actually worked out really well for us, and it happened to fit in with something that we have both loved from the get-go, Kung Fu movies.
Yes. And I know you have a little bit more experience with Bollywood films than I do. My general experience have been stumbling upon it, like, because every Halloween I try and watch a horror movie every single day.
Sure.
And I'll stumble upon a movie that I've added to my list, or I just go through Netflix's list of horror films, and the next one on the list just ends up being a Bollywood movie, and okay, there we go. That's what I'm watching. So, a little bit about Bollywood before we start, because I know most of the people that we know who listen to this have no clue about any of Bollywood.
Yes.
And I was honestly ignorant of it until recently, too.
And now that the rabbit hole's opened, I have so many more movies I need to get through.
Yes. So, Bollywood, or Indian Hindi language film industry, is centered in Mumbai, which is previously Bombay, which is where the term comes from. It's a portmanteau of Bombay and Hollywood.
Oh,
and
clever.
The name for that, they suspect started in the 70s. And currently, Bollywood produces more feature films than anywhere else in the world, including Hollywood. Which
is really impressive, especially seeing as they kind of got their start in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot real fast.
Yes, and from what I've learned, the part of the language they use is vernacular Hindustani, which is both, again, very basic Wikipedia research on this, is mutually intelligible by both Hindi and Urdu speakers, but is starting to incorporate what's called Hinglish, which is a mixture of Hindustani and English.
There was a lot of English words in this movie, which made it fun to watch because you could definitely catch words, which did make it easier, especially because, and this is part of the reason why it's fun to watch Japanese dramas and stuff, is because there's so many English words just in the language itself, like coffee. Excuse you, computer.
And for me, I like watching these movies partly for that, because it kind of reminds me of listening to my Oma speak with her sister, where they used what I call Germish.
Yes.
Like they do.
It's kind of German.
Yeah. They use part of sentence in German, a couple of phrases in English, and then back to German. So I could understand what they were saying a little bit. Yeah.
And it also kind of helps, especially if you're like my husband and not a versed subtitle reader. It does mean that like you're capable of skipping some words in the sentence because you recognized that word and you don't have to read it, or you see it and you know where you are, which definitely helped him. We didn't have to pause anything. We didn't have to rewind anything this time, which was really cool.
You say that, but last night with the lads, I tried explaining the German number system to him. He had a very hard time with Vierzig.
Yeah, okay, so he found out that you can change... We recently got Mario Odyssey, and he found out that in the game, and not just on the system, but in the game you can change the language. So for my entertainment, he switched it to Italian for me to practice. And he pronounced everything so Spanish.
A bibbidi bobbidi boo.
Nope, it was like listening to someone reading a Mexican restaurant sign.
Like when I try speaking Gaelic.
Yeah, please don't.
So, anywho, back to Bollywood.
Yes.
Their most popular genre film since the 70s has been what's called masala films, which, for those who don't know, masala is a mixture of spices.
Yes.
And so with that, masala films are a mixing of genres, generally musicals being the predominant genre of masala films.
Yes.
Also, Bollywood has been the largest producer of musicals since the 60s, when they became out of vogue with American film.
Yes, and I think that's probably the style that most people are familiar with. It's definitely the one I was most familiar with. Granted, what the musical mashup was changed a lot, so there was a lot of like family drama mashup musicals, there was action and full-on musical mashups, and so musical seems to be in most of the movies, even if it's not as predominant.
Oh, I will get to that in a second. Because between the masala films, they also have a distinctive style called parallel films, which originated in the 50s, and it was an alternative to mainstream Indian cinema, lasting from 1952 to 1992 specifically. And it's also classified as Indian New Wave.
Okay.
And it slightly predates Italian and French New Wave films.
Yes.
And so they focus on realistic contents, complete avoidance of musical numbers, and that's more of the genre I'm familiar with, because a lot of the horror films don't tend to have those musical numbers.
No.
They're very fanciful, but they lack the musicals that we're familiar with.
Yeah.
And also, this is why I wanted to bring up parallel films, is more and more Bollywood films are blurring the lines between parallel and masala films.
I see, yes. I think this one qualifies in that gray area.
So, just a little bit more on the history, because I'm a history nerd. I love learning about this stuff. Previously, before the 40s, Lahore was the center of filmmaking, but when talent moved to Bombay, Bombay became the center, and it has reigned as the primary maker of feature films in India. And for Bollywood, the 40s and 60s are considered the golden age, which became prominent after Indian independence. In 1957, Mother India was the first Indian film nominated for Best Foreign Language Feature at the Academy Awards.
Ooh, fancy.
57, that is... You can see where it starts to get a little bit of influence.
Yeah.
Because from my research, that defined Hindi cinema for decades.
Gotcha.
And then there was a lull, and then in the 70s and 80s, classic Bollywood was established, and now currently we're in new Bollywood, which is the 90s to the present.
Gotcha. I think I'm most familiar with that classic Bollywood. I think most of the ones I grew up watching, that's where the sweet spot was. And
I've stumbled upon more new Bollywood horror films.
Sure.
So, very, very brief rundown of Bollywood.
There's a lot more to get into, as with any big industry, but an overview to get us started.
Yes. So, what is this movie about, Chris?
Oh boy, what isn't this movie about? So, this movie, in a most vague way that I can say, is about a little boy who, through an accident involving his mom and dad, ends up, which I don't know if this is medically correct or not, but he ends up with congenital insensitivity to pain, which is also known as CIP, and it is a real condition. I looked into that because that was so cool to me.
I did a little bit too.
Is this movie an accurate representation of people who suffer from CIP? No. Not even a little bit. But the idea is cool. And from what I understand, the director, whose name I'm about to butcher really badly, Vasan Bala, I think is how you pronounce the director's name.
I have no clue.
I don't either. But so during my research, I read that he had... back in 2006, before this movie was he even thought of it, a friend had told him a story about a dentist who had a patient, so like a friend of a friend of a friend, and the dentist's patient had this condition and didn't ask for anesthesia when he went in for teeth things, which to me, no thank you. Dentists are no thank yous, don't want it. But this gave the director, named Bala, well, hi Charlie, that gave him the idea for this character, and then later on, he decided to blend this character with things that he also loved, which happened to be, at the time, Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, and, the Karate Kid movie.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
He was apparently a pretty big karate and kung fu movie lover back when he was a kid, which explains kind of also the selection of movies that are inside this movie. Because while there's a lot of karate references, so if you're a karate fan, this movie's a lot of fun.
Oh boy, is there.
Yeah, there's a lot of karate references, and while there's definitely the over-the-top karate movies, there's not the next level, everyone's on strings fighting in a green screen space dragon. Those, I didn't see a ton of those names. I don't think I saw any of those names, at least none that I recognized. But you will catch a ton of Bruce Lee references and a ton of Jackie Chan references.
I will say one of the movies they plug in is one of my current favorite. I'm not even going to call it a martial art film. It's Big Trouble in Little China.
I love that movie.
Yeah, not very kung fu, but almost. But at the same time, it is.
It's got the soul. So this movie shares that. It has the soul of a kung fu movie. It has the musical numbers of a more classical Bollywood movie, without any of the characters ever breaking out into song and dance.
Yes.
And so the whole movie revolves around this person who starts off as a kid, makes it all the way through to a young adult, and how his goal in life is to rescue those around him in a superhero kung fu style. And shenanigans ensue. And then from there, the plot kind of gets a little crazy.
Oh yeah. And on top of that, he has another condition, which they don't specifically say it. I didn't see that it was associated with CIP.
Okay.
He has to constantly drink water.
Yes, okay. My husband and I noted this as well. This character has to drink so much water. And I missed where in the movie it mentioned that this was a condition he had, other than just being constantly dehydrated. And they made it sound like everyone has to constantly drink water or they will just die.
Just him.
Just him. Okay, that makes a lot more sense to me now because, like, as a kid, at some point he passes out from being dehydrated. And so then his grandfather instills into him that he needs to constantly drink water or he will get sick and possibly die.
If he gets dehydrated, he dies.
And if he gets dehydrated, he dies. And his dehydration level, like, I could probably go uncomfortably long without drinking water.
He has the dehydration level of Erica.
Yeah, okay, yes. Our dear friend Erica, is very similar to this character in the fact that there's always a water bottle within hand's reach, no matter where we are or where we're going. It's so extreme, though, with this character that at one point, even the water bottle is not enough water, and he has to get a backpack water bottle.
The water backpack.
The water backpack.
Which he compares to Bruce Lee's nunchucks, Jedi's lightsaber, and a drunken master's wine.
Yes, which I applaud all of those references. However, maybe this child needs to go see more doctors. That's too much water, and you're dehydrating way too fast.
Who knows?
I don't know. I couldn't find an actual condition, but I'm sure somewhere out there this is a thing.
I did find it. I couldn't find the exact name of it, though.
Okay.
I don't remember the exact name because I forgot to write it down.
Yeah, I understand that. But, like, when we say dehydrate and die, like, he stops drinking water for maybe 30 minutes and, like, will suddenly feel woozy.
The movie starts off with him dying.
Yes.
And
it's very dramatic. I love it.
I love it, too, because it starts off with his very... I don't know how to describe the music.
Poppy Bollywood is the best way I could think. It's good music.
But it's got a heavy, like, beat to it.
It's
not our American, like, pop.
No, think more like 90s hip-hop, I guess.
Yeah. And so he's beating this crowd of people. It starts off with, like, him, like, do they know who they're coming at? Like, whoa, watch if someone trips.
And a guy trips.
And then
so
he
funny.
Starts taking them on. And then in the middle of, like, a spinning, flying kick, he's like, oh, flashbacks.
I forgot to drink water.
Am I dying?
Yeah, I forgot to drink water in the last minute and a half, and now I'm dying. Like, it's almost uncomfortable how much he has to drink water. And
I almost love the flashbacks. Like, how we complained a little bit about Sonic's flashbacks. His are used to...
Oh, they're everywhere.
They're everywhere, but they're used to almost a comedic effect.
Oh, and yes, I definitely agree with that. And also, I think this might just be a storytelling difference, because I've seen this kind of storytelling device used in other Bollywood films in the past. Mm-hmm. But not only are the flashbacks potentially telling you information, but sometimes they're not at all. They're just ideas that could have happened in his head and just didn't. Yeah, it's kind of like when I was thinking about it, I was thinking about Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes. Yeah. Where instead of it being, almost that, where he's like calculating it out and then it follows through. It kind of made me think of Will Ferrell's Watson, where he thinks it out, but instead of it happening the way he just thought it out, something else changes and it doesn't work. Yeah, more kung fu related rather than Will Ferrell pissing on himself. Yeah, okay, that's just everything though. But like a good example is partway through the movie, he falls in love with this girl, and so in his mind he goes through this really cool action scene where he's gonna save her, he's gonna beat up all these bad guys, and then it flips back to him still sitting watching her, and he decides that's what he's gonna do. He's gonna do exactly what he just thought. He gets up, spooks her, and she punches him, which I thought was hilarious. Yes. So, a little bit ahead of everything. Yes. I started keeping track of where stuff happens in this movie. Good luck. Because the timeline's everywhere. From his birth, which is our very first flashback. Yes. Almost this entire movie is flashbacks. It's a little Inception-y in how much flashback there's going on. A bit. It just makes it a little difficult for the average watcher to follow what's going on. Mm-hmm. My husband definitely struggled to know when was real and when was not. But not as much as some American movies that do the flashback nonsense. I agree. So, we learn of his birth that his mom and dad were in a movie theater watching some Bollywood musical. Yes. And she starts having the baby after being confronted by someone getting annoyed at her husband talking in the movie. Yes. And we find out about his birth. He almost kills his childhood friend's dad, Supri, Yes.
Who is also the love interest.
Yes.
We find out that she was always there for him in school. She would attack the bullies.
Yes.
She only stood up for him. She wouldn't stand up for herself.
Yes. And they were a very cute dynamic duo.
Mm-hmm.
And this is part of the story that I really liked because it did throw me for a loop here for a second too. Is they set it up like, oh, these are your two main characters. Here's the main character's backstory. And here's them going through life. And then he moves.
Well, he almost kills her dad because, one, he's a drunkard.
Yeah.
And he beats her. And so he kicks him somewhat off the roof.
I think he kicked him off the roof.
He kicked him off the roof, but on the shallower side of the roof. They're living in like a 5-story building. He doesn't kick him off the very top to the bottom. They kick him off onto like the balcony.
Yeah.
And so he's forced into exile. His dad rips up all his kung fu movies. His
dad is a very funny character because his dad is portrayed as this very nervous man who was not ready to be... Early on, we also learn that his mother dies.
Well, his mother dies when he's a baby.
Yeah. And it's kind of assumed that this condition is because of the accident that killed her. The whole family was on the motorbike together that crashed. But,
the tragic hero moment.
It was a very tragic hero moment. But the dad is very much written as a character who is not ready to be a single father whatsoever. I'm not even sure he was ready to be a father at all.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, to have a kid with a special need. A very unique, very difficult special need. And
his father-in-law.
Yes.
Surya?
Good. Nope. I have no idea.
I want to know this guy's name because I don't want to misspeak. Surya.
Yeah. Okay.
Surya.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's how it's said.
The main character, his grandfather's there with him all the time. His grandfather's hippy-dippy,
very like
laid back, chill.
Yeah, very, the movie portrays it as like he raised his daughter to be this like free-willed, empowered person, and the father is very worried that this is gonna turn into that on his son too, which worked fine on the daughter, but she's a normal person in a normal world, and his son is not.
Yeah.
Which, this is the one part of the movie that I think does have a pretty good representation on the disease. Because and it's all done in quick montage style session. So, is it super accurate? No. But it's close enough. So, this condition that he's given, CIP, means, and from what I found, there's 2 variations on this disease. There's one where you have an insensitivity to pain. So if someone comes up and stabs you, you don't necessarily register that as pain, you just register a pressure. Mm-hmm. And then there's indifference to pain, which I think is what this character's supposed to have.
Yeah.
And so
he can't feel pain at all.
It's the lack of any response whatsoever to the pain. Mm-hmm. So, and most people who have this condition do not make it past 4. Because especially when you're little, you fall, you bump, you're learning to do things. And so think of it like getting burned.
And not only that, the other thing I learned was a lot of it is due to like illness. Yeah. Like if a kid has a severe fever, they won't feel it.
Yeah, they have no idea of any kind of pain. So they don't notice they've bitten their own tongues. They don't recognize they've broken bones. They don't recognize that they still have their hand on the burning stove. And so they do this fun montage showing all of the dad's struggles of trying to raise this very excited young kid.
Not very excited kid due to his grandfather.
His grandfather is definitely an antagonist.
Showing him so many
kung fu movies. In fact, at one point they like go to a place that's a movie sales store, and the owner says, "No, I'm getting rid of all my VHS tapes. DVDs are in. DVDs are in." So they like clear out the kung fu section,
which is great too because it's also during like there's this obsession with like the tech of the 80s and the 90s in this movie.
It's very 90s vibe. I love it.
I also really like that because it applies. I feel later on.
Yeah.
But yeah, the grandfather's showing him all this stuff like The Crow.
I saw that one, yeah.
The 36 Chambers of Shaolin.
Mm-hmm.
The Lucky Master,
Yep.
the Drunk Master,
Oh, yes.
Return of the Street Fighter.
I think, yeah, there was a lot of VHSs going in real fast.
At one point, he's wearing a shirt where he's scribbled in marker or something, "I have the machine gun now." So we know he's watched Die Hard.
Yeah.
Very excited kid.
Very excited kid who doesn't register any pain.
Yes.
With a very nervous dad.
And because of this, we actually learn his weakness right away, is that his weakness is he can't feel pain.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which most of us would think of as a strength, but it's this weird little in-between of...
It's a balancing act for him.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is funny, though, because I like the grandpa character probably the most out of everyone in this movie.
He's the old sensei character.
He is very much the old sensei character. And so once the dad... For the first time, the dad loses it over all of the kung fu movies and how much pain the boy is in, and the doctor not really helping, I guess, from the scene we got. The grandfather then decides that he's going to use the kung fu movies to teach the boy pain. Mm-hmm. So every time he watches Bruce Lee get hit, he also has to say ow. Yep. So he at least learns that what events should hurt him, which is, I think, good. And then, of course, he hurts himself farther, and his dad's like, "Nope, we're cutting you off. We're going to sit quietly in this room, and every 15 minutes you're going to stand up, wiggle all your body parts, wiggle your toes, open your mouth to make sure you haven't cut off your tongue." Good.
A little bit ahead on that. So what we actually learn from this, too, is there's a tape he puts in that says, "Goodbye, Bruce Lee, the last game of death."
Yes.
And he puts it in, and the side label says Game of Death. And when he puts it in, it's 100-man kumite.
Yes.
With this one-legged martial artist, which I wonder if that's an homage to like the one-armed swordsman, or there's so many movie references. There's so many that it
could have been, and I'm sure that the director probably had one specific person in mind when he made this very direct character. But especially once you get into the kung fu world, there's so many one-legged and one-armed masters that it's kind of hard to pinpoint it down. Mm-hmm. He kind of embodies all of them all at the same time, which was fun.
Yeah. And so because of that, he thinks he can take on
100.
100 and including God, I can't remember her name. Love interest's Supri. Take on Supri's dad. And so this is when there's a lot in this like first 45 minutes of the movie, and so that's when he's thrown into exile.
Yes, I think he's also thrown into exile not just because he's the weird kid who can't feel pain, but also because the apartment complex they're living in operates somewhat like a universal family. Everyone's not just neighbors; they're very friendly with each other, and so all of the neighbors are really worried that this kid was bold enough to attempt to kill a man. He might do it again.
Yeah.
And so I think the neighbors are all really worried that this kid needs help. But instead they go live in an old abandoned house in the edge of town.
And so this is where we get the montage of him growing up. He tries taking on another gang of youth and realizes he can't take out 4 people.
No. Gets beat up pretty good.
His grandfather was able to keep the 100-man kumite tape still. His dad freaks out again. And one of my favorite moments in it is when his dad is telling him, telling the grandfather, "You have to leave. I can't take this. I loved your daughter as she was, but I don't want my son becoming like that. Get out. Please leave." And the grandfather's like, "But this is my house."
Yes.
And he's like, fine.
The father is a very funny background character because he's wound tight the entire movie. Mm-hmm. At no point does he ever shown being relaxed.
He's like Bartok.
He is very much like Bartok. And on top of that, he's never in control of a situation. Mm-hmm. And he's also somehow incredibly oblivious to everything around him.
Yes, because we also learn that the son has been practicing martial arts in his free time. Not in his free time, at night alone when no one can see him.
And he's also... His dad creates this routine for him that, in his mind, is going to teach him how to grow up and be safe and make it past that scary childhood age of potential death. And the routine is things like the dad will walk into his room and say, all right, time to eat breakfast. All right, time to go to the bathroom. Walks back in. All right, time to brush your teeth. Like, he just, every, like, 15 minutes tells him to do something. But at no point is it, like, a together act. It's just, like, he walks by his room at one point, and once he gets older, he's not even, like, looking at him anymore. He's, like, on his phone texting. And he'll, like, pop in his head and be like, all right, 15-minute check, and his son will stand up, take his goggles off, make sure his eyes open, like, wiggle his fingers, pat himself down.
Because that's one of the other things I learned, too, is that eye infections, like, if you get, like, a bit of dust in your eye, you won't know it.
No, you have no idea. So he wears goggles for the whole movie.
He looks so weird.
Yeah,
like,
okay. Yes,
there's a reason he was bullied as a kid.
To be honest with you, I'm surprised. There's a scene later on once he is all grown up and the grandfather specifically is announcing that he is definitely a man, which is so awkward. Thanks, Grandpa. But there's a group of, I guess, military-esque or, like, troop-esque girls that run by, and they somehow decide that he's the cute one, despite the fact that this man is wearing goggles, has never left his house except for being chaperoned by his father at the market every Sunday, and is wearing a water backpack, guzzling water.
To be fair, he is a very good-looking guy.
No, he is a very good-looking guy. However, they are not close enough to notice that. I don't know. Maybe this is just a personal preference, but if I'm that far away and you've got that much goggle and backpack and water guzzling action happening, we might be friends. But I wouldn't throw a brick at your house to write my number on it. True.
But how oblivious is the dad that his son is a shut-in, but has got freaking jacked?
His dad has no idea what's going on ever in this whole movie. And that's the gold part, because yes, his son being fit, he completely ignores, but, like, you could argue, like, okay, well, he sees him every day, he doesn't notice, he, I'm sure, remembers himself being a young, fit guy and is exaggerating that in his mind, so, like, it's fine, but, like, later on, the dad finds a new wife, gets married, goes on honeymoon, and comes back, all while the main action of this movie is happening, and at no point does the dad realize that some of them have been arrested at one point, that, like, they've potentially, like, joined a gang, kind of. They've found a drunken karate guy and, like, broken him out of prison. Like, no idea. This man is so oblivious. He's great.
And so this training montage is arguably the very first dance scene.
Yeah, it's a little dancey.
Yeah, it's...
The music is a little bit more forward than I think normal America are used to. Like, when we get a music montage, with the exception, I think, of little kids' movies, the music, while being predominant, is never so upfront that that's what you notice. It's usually like, oh, that's a cute 80s tune like Rocky Balboa doing his montage, but you're really more focused on Rocky for that scene, and then that's the Rocky song. Whereas with this movie, the song hits you so hard that, like, it's more of a music video than part of the movie.
It almost reminds me of Baby Driver a little bit.
Oh, yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah, where everything is focused around the music, because the music is important to the movie. Yes. So... And that's another thing, too, that I learned about Bollywood movies, is a lot of times the soundtrack for the movie will come out before the movie. And
honestly, the soundtrack for this movie is pretty killer.
Well,
I really like it.
On top of that, the soundtrack does better than the movies most of the time.
Yeah, it does.
And people actually follow the singers, because most of the dancers can't sing. Yeah. And so they'll do voiceovers and recordings, and people are more interested in the vocalists, and they'll go to the movie because that person's singing in it.
Yes. And this movie, I don't think, is quite the level of, like, precise music picking as, like, say, Baby Driver was. But, like, think more if all of the music from, like, Guardians of the Galaxy was, like, new music, as opposed to, like, retro music. That level of, like, intense, it's about the song right now, we're not listening to background noises, song time.
Yes. And honestly, it made the movie feel quite a bit more enjoyable.
Oh, and I loved it. It was great. I want more.
Here's the crazy thing. So we've gone through all this montage. Yep. We're almost 40 minutes into the movie at this point.
It's a surprisingly long movie.
And honestly, we're not really into the meat or the story of...
No, the story part happens so fast that honestly, if you're not paying attention, like, you could miss something pretty quick.
And that was one thing I forgot that while we were trying to pick out a movie for this, that most Bollywood movies run just under 2 hours or more.
Yeah, I had forgotten that since, like, most of the time it was something that I watched at a friend's house, and it wasn't really that we were watching it. It was usually, like, my friend's mom was watching it, and it was just kind of in the background while we did our own thing. But, like, you never, like, really noticed it was 2 hours long until you sit down and are like, all right, I've got this amount of time to watch it this weekend. Oh, it's 2 hours long.
And I have to take notes while I watch.
Yeah, I didn't. I had to do it too. I had to watch it twice so I could take notes. Because it is so fast-paced during certain parts of the movie. It, like, the pacing feels very North American and normal up until, I think, right after the next big scene, which he re-meets Supri as an adult. Because
she's giving out the, and it's alluded to earlier. Well, it's not alluded to. It's shown. It's shown that she meets
the 100-man karate master.
Yeah, and so she's putting up posters of he's holding another 100-man kumite.
Yes,
and
trying again.
So this is the first scene where they're reunited as adults. Also, we're back in the city now because Dad's getting married, and he has to meet the wife.
His dad is so freaking oblivious. His dad's like, all right, well, I want you to come meet my new wife, but I'm nervous about my wife meeting you because, I mean, like, look at you, you're pretty weird. Like, what if she doesn't like you?
No, it's not even the fact that he's weird. He's more worried that she'll think he's too much of a worrywart.
Yes, which, I mean, he definitely is.
Yes.
But I think also the dad gives off vibes that he's worried because the grandpa is also coming because we can't have the kid doing things by himself. That'd be irresponsible. And so I think the dad's also worried that, like, this new wife is going to meet the dad and be like, he's already alluded to that the dad's maybe a little bit more hippie than the standard family is accustomed to.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but through all of this, the dad kind of hands him a wad of cash and's like, all right, go pick out some nice clothes because you don't have any. I'll meet you at like 4. See you there.
Or no, just buy whatever you want because he doesn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, his dad is so awkward. It's great.
And what does the kid buy?
He buys himself a karate suit.
A Bruce Lee jumpsuit.
It's bright red from head to toe. And honestly, though, I will give him this. There's a very small percentage of people who can make a solo-colored jumpsuit look good. And he does it. He does make the jumpsuit look cool. I think his grandpa calls him...
he says it's cheap.
His grandpa says it's cheap, and I think his grandpa at some point also says it reminds him of the Ninja Turtles, which is fair.
To be fair, I do want Bruce Lee's yellow...
It's pretty cool.
Jumpsuit. Oh, it's so cool.
It's so cool. On Bruce Lee.
Not chubby old me.
I don't think the standard person that I see, even in beautiful Bentonville, where Walmart isn't just Walmart here, it's luxury Walmart. Even our Walmart people don't make that jumpsuit look good.
No. So, anywho, he meets the girl.
He finally re-meets Supreme.
She is pretending like she doesn't recognize him.
And to be honest with you, I didn't connect that this was Supri either for a few minutes.
I connected right away.
I guessed it, and then her pretending that it wasn't him did give me a couple seconds of doubt, mostly because I judge everyone. I have no facial recognition. It's all hair-based, and so she did not have the same hair as a child.
That is probably one of the weirdest superpowers ever.
It's not a superpower. This is definitely not a superpower. It makes things so difficult. Please don't ever change your hair.
So, anywho, so he meets her, and we find out that she's a kung fu badass now.
Yes.
Because
she's taken on the karate master and taken him seriously.
Yeah, there's a gang of youths who are...
They're called the Chain Snatchers, which sounds real stupid in English.
That's what he calls them, though.
Yes, yeah, and granted, he's not cool.
These guys are have drugged a chick. They have her in a car.
Yep.
We don't know what they're going to do with her. Assumably take her back for...
bad times.
Yes.
Yeah, and on top of that, the the main character is equating these bad guys with the same bad guys who killed his mother. And the reason he's calling them chain snatchers is because the reason his mother died is because while they were on the motorbike home from the hospital, a different motorbike came up and tried to snatch the necklace off of his mother's neck. And when it's attached to her neck like a necklace is. Yeah. And since she couldn't get it off, the motorcycle fell over. And so in his mind, I think he's kind of equated most gang problems.
He's very naive.
He is very naive. But I see where he's going, and I think it's a cool idea. It just maybe doesn't translate super great. Yeah. We don't really have a motorbike problem with, like, people snatching necklaces here. It's kind of like a one, maybe two people on a motorcycle kind of situation in the Midwest. So. And
so, at this point, he has this vision that you were talking about of him playing out how he was going to beat these guys up.
It was so cool. And then should have been there to see it.
He goes and taps her on the shoulder, and she knocks him out.
Punches him square in the face.
Not knocks him out. Yeah, just knocks him flat on his back, and she starts taking them out. Yeah. And then he takes out like a couple of them.
He takes like out one or two people at best.
Just out of shock because they think he's one of them.
Yeah, no one knows what's going on. He doesn't know what's going on. She's honestly the only one who actually knows what's going on most of this movie.
Oh, and the reason we're here too is because he went back to reflect. His grandfather took him back to his house to take his anger out because he assumed he was mad that his father was getting married. And while he's there, the house has become a drug den. Yes. He's up on the roof taking a piss while his grandfather's taken to the police station.
Yeah, got arrested. Whoops.
He runs into her because he's on his way to the police station. Yeah. Grandfather's fine.
Yeah, his grandfather manages to sweet talk his way out of everything.
And we get some weird dream-ass moments, which is probably the next it is a very Bollywood-esque.
It is very Bollywood-esque.
Because also what I read was a lot of these musical numbers are used to change scenery as well. Yep. So
you never really know where you are.
Oh yeah. So in this scene where he's in the police office, Supri bursts through a gun gun cabinet. Yeah. And the grandfather's like, "What the hell are you doing?" They go to meet. He's like, "Okay, whatever. It's a dream." Go to meet the new stepmother, and while they're looking out, he sees her walking across the patio, goes to a flashback of him thinking of her, then goes...
He pretty much daydreams about her for, like, the rest of the afternoon.
Yes. And then they're back at a dinner, and he pulls out the flyer for his grandfather while...
His dad is being completely oblivious to everything.
Off doing something. Yeah. And they're in a Chinese restaurant, too.
Yes, they are.
And he's looking through, he's like, "Here, I'm going to meet the master.
I'm going to do it."
And so he goes, meets the master. Master is knocked out. Supri comes back in, finds him over the knocked out master.
Who's covered in red paint.
Yes, which is supposed to look like blood. She beats the crap out of him again.
Yeah, this poor guy, honestly, it's truly a miracle he's still alive.
And so we get back to a hospital where all the disciples have taken the master. His name's like Mari or something.
Yeah, I think so.
And so he's in the hospital. She's trying to get all the others to say, they're like, "No, we got other stuff to do." And we get
Mani. That's the karate.
Mani. And we find out that nothing has changed. Supri has a very controlling boyfriend.
He's a dick.
Takes her back.
Oh, I wouldn't even say he's a boyfriend. I might say that this man is fiancé level.
I think they are fiancé at this point.
Yeah.
And so, at this point, Surya meets the drunken master, or the master. Well, he is kind of a drunken...
No,
he's a drunken master at this point.
Yeah, poor guy's not looking great.
And so he meets him. He's trying to escape from the hospital.
Because he doesn't want to pay his medical bills.
Yes.
And also he's afraid to be told that he's so drunk his liver's failing.
Yes.
He doesn't want them to tell him.
And it's kind of a weird scene, too, because the hospital people try beating them up.
Well, I don't think they really wanted the drunken master to leave. But also, like, it was a little strange that the hospital staff also knew karate for some reason.
Exactly. And at this point, we also learn a bit about the drunken master's backstory. And the thing we learn with this is that
also Dunda song, by the way.
Yes. And there's something the grandfather says, behind every great story, there are terrible decisions.
Which honestly is like, that's the theme for this whole movie.
He is the epitome of it. We learn that, and this is where we really get into the meat of the story.
Yeah.
We are over an hour into the movie at this point.
God, there's so much to go over.
And we're just at the backstory of
the drunken master,
of the major conflict of the movie,
which is weird because you assume, especially starting out, that the conflict is going to probably be, the main character and Supri, the girlfriend, overcoming their differences and learning to live a normal life, which it kind of is, but it's really more about Mani, the karate master, and his brother Jimmy,
which. God, so the story
Jimmy
behind
looks like
them,
such a dick.
He is. The story behind them, super quick, is Mani. Mani has been the golden eye the golden child. He saved his brother. He's good at kung fu. He slept with Jimmy's girlfriend.
He slept with his brother's girlfriend, and they say brother, but it's kind of implied that maybe. It's like they both were in the same dojo as kids, and like the master is the father. Little vague there. We're just gonna go with it. Whatever.
They're brothers.
They're brothers, but they're rivals now.
And they've gone in two different ways. One of them is a very successful gangster / private security owner.
There's one point in the movie where Jimmy, who's the bad brother, I guess, is putting on a commercial for his own securities firm inside his own security firm, and he's just listing off random English words that make him sound cool. Like, he says, all in English, that his guys are trained in karate, kung fu, they are like tigers, they're like pandas, they're like turtles, they're like all of these things all moshed together. And it's just so ridiculous that even by Bollywood standards, this man is making himself look like an idiot.
And so, also at this time, we're kind of cutting between. We're doing a little bit of parallel action here.
Yes.
At the time, we're finding out that they're waiting to have a meeting with Jimmy.
Yes, because Jimmy's part of the chain snatcher gang somehow, and has Mani's necklace that his father left him, but Jimmy wants it because Jimmy wanted to be loved too.
And it's the symbol of the dojo or something.
I never could quite figure out what the locket was supposed to be.
I don't either. At this time, Supri, her mom's trying to get her out of marriage with this guy.
I love Supri's mom.
I do too.
Her mom is... The only reason her mom is not my favorite character is only because Grandpa is on the screen more, and Grandpa's crazier. So, Supri's mom and Supri have a lot in common. They both are very doormatty, especially in their home lives.
Yes.
And so... Supri's mom is explaining to her while Supri is complaining to her about how horribly she lets her husband treat her and how she doesn't think that it's fair. She should stand up for herself more. And her mom's like, what are you talking about? You are no better than me.
Yep.
But you have time to fix yourself.
Yep.
And that's the difference here. But does Supri's mom stop at that? Oh no! This woman cocks up a whole plan!
I will overdose on insulin. They'll take me to the hospital. We'll be in Canada by that point.
So, quick backup. Supri's fiancé has figured out a way and done all of the paperwork to move Supri and her parents to Canada for the healthcare system there. Because Supri's dad is now a paraplegic, I think, because he fell off the roof. We never see him walk again. Yeah. He's in a wheelchair. I think we're meant to assume that he has horrible health because of the accident, which he kind of makes it sound like is Supri's fault sometimes. Which, dick move, bro.
Yeah.
And then we find out that Supri's mom is also not well at all and needs very expensive medical treatment.
She has diabetes.
I think it might be more than that, but that's one of the problems.
That's why she's taking the insulin.
And then later on, like, the picture of her later on says a little bit cancer to me, so, like, might be more than just diabetes. It's not made clear. They never directly tell you. Which, honestly, I'm okay with, because we don't care. It's not important to the story. What is important is that Supri doesn't want to go to Canada.
No.
She also doesn't want to marry this guy. And so Supri's mom is like in the airport with her while the fiance and the husband are off getting food. She's like, all right, here's how it's going to work. I'm going to overdose. We're going to get on the plane. And they're going to be like, where's Supri? And I'm going to be like, she's in the bathroom. Don't worry about it. And then we'll be in Canada and you'll be free and just run. Just go, go, go. And Supri's like, Mom, you're a crazy person.
So what does Supri do? She does it.
She does it. And I do like the conflict that Supri shows here. Because I think, especially in a lot of these movies where this isn't the main story whatsoever. Supri standing up for herself. It's a big part. But it's not the main dialogue of the whole story. And so the struggle that they show Supri having with this decision, I really appreciate. Because it is a very difficult thing to make that decision. Not just from a storytelling standpoint or a fake movie character standpoint, which arguably she made the decision easier than I think a lot of people in reality could. Yeah. But by not having any conflict there, I think Supri would have felt like a fake flat character who just did whatever she was told. Yeah, she has more depth than most, or I don't know. The runaway character is a hard one to write. Yeah. And I like how they wrote Supri. And so, also at this time, Mani and Surya have started a commotion. They're so stupid together. I love them. In the headquarters. Yes. And they've decided to just beat up the entire security guard, base. They don't even start it. They just accidentally bump into one of them. Yeah, no. It's and then the meatheads start the fight. But the best part of this entire scene, arguably my favorite scene of the whole movie, is while they are both beating up and also getting beat up quite badly, there is an old man sitting behind a locked counter, and he's the gun control guy, so you're supposed to register all your weapons with him, and this is a pretty standard practice. However, for some reason, this security office only has one person who is a registered gun owner. And I don't know if that's a common thing. I think it's more of like a check-in, check-out kind of thing. It is, but on top of that, there's only certain people who are registered to be able to check in and check out. And the old man is having too much fun watching the entirety of his staff get beat up by this kid and this drunk old man that he refuses to just give anyone a weapon. Because he won't give this one person a gun. No, he's not registered. The next boss comes over and he's like, what? Why aren't you giving... They're like, what's going on? Oh, we're getting beat up. He won't give us a gun. Why won't you give them a gun? Because it's two men, or it's a man and a cripple. And he's like... Why can't they beat them up? So he goes to fight them, gets his ass kicked, goes back and here's this article. Give me my gun. He's like, okay, here you go. Takes him the gun. And I can't remember because it goes so quickly. Does Supri show up at this point now too? Supri's in the building as well. I don't remember how she got there. Because again, everything's going so fast. And somewhere in between this, mind you, Suri drinks boiling water because he's dehydrating. Which, sir, you will die. Please don't. It could be warm water. No, he spins around and pours boiling water on the guards and they all go, ah! And then he drinks the boiling water. True. This man is crazy. Not gonna lie, if someone is like, I'm gonna fight you and then drinks boiling water, I'm not gonna fight you. You're good. You got this. And so at this time, the guy has the gun. He shoots at them, hits a breaker, and starts a fire. He starts a fire in his own office. In a multi-rise building, so they're not even on the first floor. And then, of course, all of the guards panic and attempt to use the elevator to leave. And then the old man just beckons to the other guys. He's like, hey, emergency exits this way. Yeah, what are you guys doing? Don't take the elevator in a fire. Just go down the stairs. There is one bad guy character. Charlie, what's wrong? Oh, goodness. There's one bad guy character who almost manages to stand out along with the old man who refuses to give anyone a gun. And that is the over 7 foot tall giant man who is shown as the best fighter, but then later on we find out that he's not the best fighter. No, he gets his ass kicked. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Wow. So scary. But yeah, so we managed to get... There's a lot more in that scene, but that's all we've got time for. Yeah. And so we get through that crazy nonsense. The building's on fire. Surya takes a break to drink from a... Nastiness. Oh, what's it called?
a Culligan bottle thing.
Yeah.
And then everyone else is like, okay, yeah, I need a break too. And then that's when the guards leave. They're like, nope, we're done with this. This is above our pay grade. They get out. They go back to the childhood home. And
Jimmy, the boss, is having none of it.
Yes.
He's very upset that this is what happens. And so, being the smart man that he is, push comes to shove, we end up with Granddad being held hostage.
That's a little bit ahead of ourselves. So we have a little bit of a moment of reprieve.
Oh, yeah, I guess we do have that little break.
They go up on the roof.
Everyone's going to have a nice, quiet evening.
Someone's not having a quiet evening.
In the most uncomfortable tiled roof on this planet.
Surya is completely oblivious. Supri pounces on him.
Yes.
She is,
Supri has decided that this is what she's going to do with her life. And honestly, like, if you can manage to lay on those horrible, horrible tiles and have a good time, good on you, I guess.
Before that, they catch up a little bit.
They do. They have a cute little moment. It's our relationship building scene. Doesn't matter to this movie whatsoever.
No. Not at all.
But it's cute. I mean, it's fine.
We get a zoom out of the Earth. Day changes to night. It zooms back in. She's getting ready, or she's putting her clothes back on. He's like, I feel stuff other than pain. Like, I don't feel pain, but I feel everything else. She gets a little grin on her face, and she has the I had sex walk/dance.
Yeah, there's a lot of strange dancing on her way to the drugstore for the morning after pill.
Yes.
Which, honestly, is this scene necessary whatsoever? No, but it does make Supri a more fun character.
And it also, I don't know, it's kind of interesting because now she's taking what she wants at this point.
It does show her becoming more of the person she wants to be as opposed to what her dad or her fiance wants.
I'll say pace-wise, it's a nice reprieve from that long set of action. And
we need to catch our breath because we're about to have everyone kidnapped and then fight a 100-man fight.
No, it's a 20-man kumite because
he couldn't get 100 people.
Well, no, I love it too because it's smart. It's fun writing because earlier Mani said because no one's showing up for his kumite. He's like, well, if we have 20 people, we can have some kind of event.
Like we can organize a tournament.
That's why there's 20 people at that final fight. And so, basically, Supri, Mani, Grandpa, and Surya have to fight their way out. They have to go through one person at a time, and Surya is the last person. Everyone's getting knocked out. They're holding the ground a bit, but then they ultimately tire out. They get knocked out.
And it's also not a fair fight. We should definitely make that very clear. Like, at first it's shown as maybe it being a fair fight, and then it's shown that no, the guards get to leave and take breaks whenever they want, and then come back to the fight whenever they want. And while they're taking a break, someone else is fighting the same person.
Grandfather's kind of a bit of a badass too.
He's doing his best he can for having no action scenes up until this point. And then weapons start getting involved. Yes,
and everyone's getting knocked out. Surya comes in, and someone nudges Jimmy. He's like, hey, he feels no pain.
We don't have to go one at a time.
So they all charge him, and we're back to the beginning of the movie.
It was a clever cut.
And so, fights him, he's dying, and
because he didn't drink water in the last 10 minutes.
Might have been a little bit longer. We don't know how long he's been held hostage.
This man wouldn't survive a day in our office.
No. And so it starts to rain because his mother's heard his wishes.
Heard his cry. And so, of course, there's a slow-mo pan of him drinking rainwater. And then later on, he wrings out his nasty-ass sweatshirt into his mouth.
Okay, so at that point, he beats up the rest of the people.
Yes, we're beating up most of the people, and we're down to one guy.
Which we find out the guy holding the gun is the strongest fighter. He gives the gun to the boss, and he's like...
Well... Almost. So there's another stronger fighter. The guy originally holding the gun is a little bitch and gets shot. Or stabbed. He gets stabbed by Jimmy because he tells Jimmy off.
Yeah. He's like, wouldn't it be easier to shoot him or something like that?
And Jimmy stabs him because Jimmy is, as they say, a cliche psychotic villain.
Yes. And so he has to fight this guy in
the last samurai.
10-point fight.
Yes. It's a bullshit 10-point fight, by the way.
Which you reminded me, there is a poster of Toshiro Mifune as Miyamoto Musashi from the Samurai Trilogy earlier on. Anywho, back to the fight. They have a 10-point fight.
Yep.
he's losing. He's getting his ass handed to him.
He's like 6-0.
He's pausing to check on everyone, making sure they're fine, which is a nice little touch.
Yes, very cute.
Wrings out his shirt, and we realize how jacked he is. And it's like, oh.
Not only that, but like to get that level of definition, he is actually dehydrated. So, kudos on him for that.
And so he makes his comeback. He beats the guy.
Yep.
He goes to take the necklace back and gets shot.
Yeah, he gets shot in the chest.
And Supri comes, takes the gun away. Syria comes at him and he starts getting stabbed.
Yeah, Jimmy is a little bitch in a fight.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy also has a fancy shanking stick kept up his sleeve
Assassin's
on a spring
Creed
style. But Jimmy's wearing a purple suit, so like it's not cool.
No.
It's stupid on Jimmy. So yeah, we're having our main character stabbed to death. And finally, Supri does the one definite thing other than decide that she likes this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And she shoots him in the head.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's self-defense, so...
Yeah, I don't know how everything... I think Grandpa takes the blame for that. Or no, the Karate Man takes the blame for taking the shot, is what I could see from the newspaper headline. So,
but they praise him for self-defense, taking down this corrupt...
Yeah. But he still goes to jail. But in jail, he finally finds his people. All of the people who knew him as the 100 Karate Man are in jail. And they're big fans. And so he finally finds his place in jail, which is sad, but good for you, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So, and also at this point, we find out they all live. It's a happy ending.
It's a cliche happy ending, minus Jimmy, who's dead.
Yeah. Syria is working as an accountant. His dad got married. Supri went out like every other 20. She is 20. They're in their 20s.
They are in their early 20s.
She has gone out in the workplace to find a job.
Yep.
But that's not where the story ends.
No.
It ends with them running from a gang in some underground parking garage.
Yep.
And that's a story for another time.
Exactly. It definitely sets itself up for a sequel. But honestly, with this kind of action movie, you'd be kind of shooting yourself in the foot to not set yourself up for a potential sequel.
Oh, yeah.
Do you need a sequel? Nah. But would it be fun if one showed up? Sure.
I don't know. I don't think it would have the same level of charm because while I was watching it, there were a lot of movie references. I didn't catch all of them.
Oh, there was too many to catch all in
Two
one
of
go.
the goons were named Bill and Ted.
Yes, they were.
Did you get the Tarantino reference?
I think I missed that one.
If I remember right, I can't remember if it's the stepmother or someone she's related to is referred to as Bridget von Hammersmark.
Oh, I do remember that. Yes.
Glorious bastards.
Yeah, Brian caught that one.
Of course he did.
Yeah, there's a lot of references in this movie, which makes it a lot of fun to watch because, especially since a lot of the references are in English, so they're quicker for us to catch.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but enough of them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God damn it. The last fighter's called Samurai. He calls him Samurai. He's the last samurai. God damn it. But anywho, I really enjoyed this movie.
Oh, it was so much fun.
A lot of it is they're still rather innocent up until the very end where they have he's dying and stuff. Yeah. They're very much children in adults' bodies.
Oh, very much. And also from someone who loves karate films, I love the kung fu action style films. I wasn't disappointed with the stunts in this movie either. No. I think everyone spent about 8 months training for it, practicing and taking classes, and you can tell was it as fluid as watching Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan fight? No. But it was convincing enough for me to have a good time.
Yeah.
The other thing that was fun is, and I'm fairly certain that the gal who plays Supri, the girlfriend, I think she did all her own stunts. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long movie. It drags a little bit for an American audience.
Yes.
Because I know a lot of Bollywood is about pure entertainment value.
Yes.
This movie, I feel, is very much why I wanted to talk about the history and the main genres a little bit. Yeah. Because it very much blurs the line between almost combining multiple genres. It's definitely a kung fu movie.
Oh, yeah.
But it takes itself a little bit more seriously than many of the other
kung fu knockoff films.
Yeah, exactly. It almost it's not. It is almost a parody, but it doesn't feel like a parody.
I wouldn't call it a parody so much as an appreciation for.
Yes.
Like, Kung Pao, parody.
Yeah.
Hardcore parody. This one, though, while staying in the comedy and action genre, is on the other side of that scale in the, I truly love these things and I want all of them in one.
But it doesn't take itself, I mean, it's that in between. Trying. It doesn't take itself too seriously.
No, it's not a Kung Fu film. It just loves Kung Fu.
Yes. And I don't know, it's definitely a fun movie.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I kind of wish there's more sequels to it, but at the same time, I'm fine with it. Like, yeah,
like, it's fun. It was fine. If there's more, I have no doubt that this director, who clearly loves this genre and has a lot of things to pull from, will create something that's also wonderful and quirky and weird. Will it be exactly the same? No. I don't think you can. And I don't think you could do that because also a lot of this movie pulled off of the surprises with the different characters showing up at different points, with knowledge of certain characters' actions and inactions throughout history that you're just never told until a certain point.
Yeah.
And you can't do that in the second one without adding more characters to then do that with.
Yeah.
But the overall concept of a Bollywood Kung Fu film, I think it worked great, and I wouldn't be mad if there was others. Yeah,
and as a standalone movie, it's rather complete. I mean...
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
I think that leads to the length of the movie itself, because that's what I've come across, is a lot of these movies, their length is because they're telling you the entire story. You have to know the backstory. Oh, yeah. It's almost like reading a novel or a novella where you have to know everything to it, and you can't just do it in a short, quick, concise story.
And even though we did have characters who were less flushed out than others, our main quartet of characters was flushed out to the point where we didn't have any lingering questions or worries about where they were. Our brief scene for Mani in jail was plenty for us. We all felt happy for him. Our brief scene with Grandpa and with Dad and with Supri all gave us a closure sense, even though it wasn't necessarily actual closure, just because we had spent so long building up enough knowledge to know what those characters wanted.
Yeah, it's very much... It's kind of one of those weird coming-of-age movies where they're not teenagers, but they're very childish adults.
Well, Grandpa made it sound like some of them were teenagers. Oh, Grandpa is so awkward sometimes. I love him, but
I do too.
So awkward.
Yeah.
But, yeah. One reviewer from The Bloody Digesting, which I think is an online review site, they called this India's highly entertaining answer to Deadpool. And I can see where they were trying to go with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as witty, I'd say.
No, it's not as fourth wall breaking as Deadpool, but the humor's there.
The
action's there.
And at times it's a little bit of a smarter humor.
Yeah.
That you kind of have to have a little bit of that movie reference and history to know what you're getting into.
Sure.
So, in the end, Chris, what would you rate this movie?
As a Kung Fu lover, this movie's a 10 out of 10 on my scale. It had all of the references that I wanted, it clearly knew what it was talking about when it came to Kung Fu and Kung Fu movies, and it put in the work for a Kung Fu film. If you're not a Kung Fu lover, though, I could see how this one would fall by the wayside. It's a fun watch. Watch it with friends, definitely, especially if you're not a Kung Fu person. But if you're not a Kung Fu person, you're not having a group friend night, it's a good introduction to Bollywood, if that's what you're wanting to start with. Because there is a lot of, like, it's an easy watch for that. But yeah, I would definitely watch it. It's really good.
No, I would definitely give this movie a recommendation, again, to more so people who are inclined to it, because I know it's hard to get people to watch foreign films.
Yeah, I get it.
I think we're on a precipice of foreign films becoming more readily available, but also people being more open to it, especially with Parasite doing so well at the Oscars.
Yeah.
And I've always advocated for people to watch foreign films. I've been trying to get my family to watch them for...
Your dad would like this movie.
I think he would too.
Yeah.
But again, it's getting him to watch subtitles.
Yeah. I will say though, that this one, because it's on Netflix, it's Netflix subtitles, so it's not a weird fonted subtitle, and they're not crazy small, which I don't understand why places do that. I can't see them. Make them bigger. So while, yes, this one, you do need subtitles, there is English words. There's not that many English words. Honestly, this is a good introduction to subtitle reading, too.
Yeah. I think it's a great introduction to just Bollywood in general.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a watch, I'd say.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Super fun. Anywho, this has been The Good, the Bad, and the Weird.
Thanks for listening.
Peace. And remember to stay hydrated.
Gotta drink my water.